Hello, everybody. In spring or early spring 2017, we decided that we wanted to go check out the Grand Canyon. Now, you can't go to the Grand Canyon directly, so we figured that the easiest and most inexpensive way is to go fly into Las Vegas and rent a car and go from there. Now, this map gives you an overall view whereabouts we traveled in, I guess, part of Utah and northern Arizona, and then back to Las Vegas. Now, those who've never been to Las Vegas, well, Las Vegas is one of the places that's made for entertainment. What they haven't never seen, you're going to see here. Well, I had made a reservation for a rental car, and when we got there fairly late, like around 10 o'clock at night, and so the fellow pulls out my reservation, and he says, "Oh, jeepers, I don't think we have any cars like that right now." So he said, "Well, I got you another vehicle here." So anyway, he pulls up some paperwork and gives us the key, and we go down the parking lot. Well, I looked like a small school bus, and I said to Karen, "Well, at least there's room for luggage." But anyways, some gal comes running up. So sorry, we messed up here, so got you a better car than that. So anyway, we got all that settled, and off we went. Now, one of the things we did as well, we went to a show for Cirque du Soleil, and that was a fun thing. And but it's quite a crazy place. Of course, the hotels are, if you get a fairly reasonable ones, they're fairly cheap, but they keep hounding you. The minute you walk into the lobby, they want you to gamble, because every hotel has basically in the basement or on the first floor casino. So that's really how they make their money. If they don't get you money for the room, they can make you money off of you for gambling. But anyway, we had a nice place. And now we're on our way to Utah, which is basically making a big loop around the Grand Canyon, but we also wanted to see some of the national parks in Utah, and so we are entering more of a mountainous area. I guess this is the lower outruns for the Rocky Mountains. Now you probably ask yourself, what's the idea with port of entry? Well, in the States, all throughout the southern states, they put these port of entry checkpoints. Basically is any trucks that come from Mexico and going up to the north, they check them for illegal products and also human smugglers. So truckers got to pull over and get inspected. Well, we arrived at the Zion National Park, which was opened in 1920. It's about 76,800 acres, or the equivalent of about 31,080 hectares. And you can see the welcome buildings were all with beautiful stones that were probably quarried in the area because it has the same color as the mountains. So we hiked up the valley a little bit and then up some of the side trails, and you see it's relatively poor quality soil, but as you get into the hills a bit, there's some beautiful flowers. And there's Karen So I've taken a break. Amazing colored of the stone, all sandstone. As you can see, we're not the only ones hiking. It was also we ended up where they had the schools had their spring break. Also, we weren't exactly the first people there. I was looking into the history a little bit of the area, and so it's been people been living there for a long time ago. Even have traced them 12,000 years ago. And now, when I was going through this, one thing that kind of hit me was like they had all these different animals and had also camels. So that kind of that was kind of unusual. I always thought the camels came from Egypt or Saudi Arabia, and to see camels in this area is kind of surprising for me. So anyway, the you can always hit this stop button if you want to take more time to read this. And as you can see, in the 1700s, all this area was occupied by Mexico, or I guess Spain, really. And then the other thing is that in 1872, John Wesley Powell, he was quite instrumental in exploring this area, and also he had a lot to do with exploring the Grand Canyon throughout the lower area. Of course, then you had the early settlers, but the land wasn't that good to actually survive, so they all eventually left. Now the National Park was established in 1920, and these were some of the first group of people who visited the park. This is a picture of the tour guides in 1969, and I was really kind of chuckling, wondering how they're going to walk those trails with those nice shoes. And this is the guides now, and much more practical, better shoes and better clothing. Now we're heading up towards Mount to Carmel, so we have to go to the Mount Carmel tunnel. And it was completed in 1930, and it's quite a feat. Anyway, it's now we're higher up, and you can see all the different rock formations, and it was it's quite beautiful. And bushes are in bloom in the area as well at the same time. Of course, it's now actually spring, but this was kind of fascinating how the rocks got shaped by, I guess, wind, rain, and climate. It's quite extraordinary. Now we're heading east towards Lake Powell, and we stayed over in Canap. Lake Powell is one of the bigger dams on the north end of the Grand Canyon, and it's part of the Colorado system that create electricity and also hold back for water. And it's you can see it's a massive structure, and steel arched bridge. And if you look down, there's actually a tunnel on the other side, which I thought was kind of unique, that goes down to the bottom of the, and you see the people down there getting ready to do some rafting, river rafting. I guess down below there wouldn't be that fast water. And even in the parking lot there was this beautiful trees in blossom. And even on the sides of the road, there's some pretty yellow flowers. And now we're looking down the Colorado River as it heads down towards the Grand Canyon. And then from Lake Powell, we traveled south into the Navajo Nation territory, and we stopped in Tuba City, which is a Hopi reservation, and it was actually a beautiful hotel, which also is owned and managed by the Hopis, and we really enjoyed our stay there. And it's a gorgeous building, and it's fairly new, and they also used a lot of energy-saving construction technologies. It's very nice. Now we're traveling towards the Grand Canyon observation area on the south side of the Grand Canyon. The north side, actually, in the wintertime is closed. But beautiful rock formations. You see the river is not flowing all that much. And all I can say about this fella here is don't back up, otherwise you're toast. And there's a trail going down to the bottom of the canyon. Now, some areas, the elevation is over 1,000 feet to get down to the bottom, so it's not something to take in lightly. And you better be fit, because it's quite the journey. And then there's some cave dwellings that there's still ruins of it. From way back. I guess that's where the original Hopis were living. And in the museum there was this painting, and we can't figure out what the story was behind. And here's a little video clip about the weather during the rainy season. Well, our next stop is Flagstaff, Arizona, and Flagstaff actually is fairly high up. It's over 7,000 feet, or about 2,100 meters above sea level. So it's also, for the railroad, it's the high point. So apparently in the past, when I just had steam engine, there was a bit of a challenge to get up that long uphill run. So anyway, it's an interesting city. We actually ended up staying over in Flagstaff, even though we didn't really have planned that. But we had arrived on Saturday in that area, and we were planning to go to Sedona. But Sedona, for the weekends, a lot of people come up from Phoenix, so all the hotels and motels are full. So anyway, but actually it was an interesting place. It's also on Route 66. So it was an interesting place to visit. We also discovered a beautiful Museum of Northern Arizona, and had some interesting exhibits. Unfortunately, not too many. I have no many pictures, but this one was a series of sculptures of Native woman walking her. I guess it looks like elevations. Now, when we came out of the museum, we had a bit of a surprise, and that's when we really realized, oh, this is actually, even though it's Arizona, but we're higher elevation, and this is actually the mountain overlooking Flagstaff, and this, believe it or not, there's a little ski resort in there. Well, we made it. Here is Sedona, and actually it's quite a bit lower than Flagstaff, and but it's a beautiful place. Look at that sky. Don't you just want to sit there and relax? Well, there's a guy, but he looks like he's not quite awake there. He doesn't know what to think of the world at this point. I think he's having breakfast. He's having had his second cup of coffee. Well, we're off hiking, and of course it's a beautiful landscape. And Sedona is well known for spas and hiking trails, so it's if you want to be fit, that's a place you want to live. Also, you never have to shovel snow either. There's, of course, being spring, flowers popping up here and there. Even this prickly pear is about to bloom. Karen is having a great time there. That's down her alley, hiking and enjoying the sun. Beats lying on the beach, actually. I prefer this to just hanging out on the beach doing nothing. But look at the color formation in that rock. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, it's one of those places you just want to sit there all day long and take pictures. Now this is the Chapel of the Holy Cross. You don't need to be religious to be inspired by the setting and the architecture. Built in 1956 by Marguerite Brunwick Staude, a student of Frank Lloyd Wright. This modern landmark with a huge cross in the facade rises between the red rock peaks, and it's just an amazing feature. More beautiful flowers. Also, we were able to get a place in Sedona on Sunday night because I guess all the visitors went back to Phoenix. But it's also a bit of a art community in Sedona, so that you see some really amazing sculptures. This picture didn't quite work out as well there. I guess the railing's kind of spoiling it. But that's a better sculpture with the mountains in the background. And these look like some native figurine. Kind of reminds me of me in my last life, but I think I came out a little more improved. So eventually we left Sedona and we traveled west. And sometimes funny how it happens. You go down the road and says, Jesus, I'm starving. Let's go find a place to eat. And so we said, okay, there's a little town here named Cottonwood. Let's go find something to eat there. And it was actually a nice little place in the Verde Valley, and is supposedly also a vine growing region. We didn't see any vineyards, but we didn't travel too far into the valley. But it was quite an interesting place. And so we moseyed up and down the sidewalk and just acted like some happy tourists. Well, there for a moment, I almost lost Karen. She saw a yoga studio and like, oh my God, here we go. But I was able to talk her out of it. Food was more important. Unfortunately, the bikes were chained down, so we couldn't go for a bike ride. But it was there. It was neat. Now we're approaching Jerome. Jerome was once known as the billion-dollar copper camp, but after the last mines closed in 1953, the booming population of 15,000 dwindled to 50 determined souls. Although its population has risen back to almost 500, wow, Jerome still holds on to its ghost town designation, and several B&Bs and eateries regularly reported spirit sighting. Jerome saw the first revival during the mid-60s when hippies arrived and turned it into some sort of an art colony. Jerome is worth visiting for its scenery. It's built on the side of Cleopatra Hill, and from there you can see Sedona Red Rocks. Well, sure enough, as we came up around a bend, driving up towards the town, I saw this sculpture on the left side, and I thought, what the heck? It's a mining town? But, well, there you go. It is actually a studio gallery, and I guess you can learn how to do sculpture and paint and whatever. And so as we walk around town, it looks like some people believe in saving old stuff. And in 1888, they had still 24 saloons. And if you look close at the sign there, that was the place of happy hours. And this used to be the main hotel. I guess it's still a hotel. And it's kind of main road leading up. Actually, it was part way was one way. I guess the roads were too narrow. Well, this guy here looks like he's gonna need some new tires. Bicycle won't help it. Anyway, it looks like that's one heck of a movie camera. I feel sorry for the guy who had to operate that thing. Now this is what I call a classic barbecue. It was behind the restaurant and it smelled great. Mesquite wood and great big old cookers. Well, back on the road again. We're up and down the highway, Route 66, heading towards Seligman. And Seligman was, I guess, a bit of a refueling station in the olden days. Now it's well, kind of geared towards tourists. But look at that, even Elvis and Marilyn Monroe are hanging out there. I think I should have had a better looking car. This thing had better days, and I don't think I'm going to rush over to J&R's Mini Mart. Looks like it might not be. Here's a fellow. I stepped on his toe because I know his gun wasn't loaded, so you know, it's kind of nice to know you can actually stay ahead of the curve. And it's just Old Town on Route 66, geared for tourism. But I was curious what the rest of the town looked like, so we drove back a couple of blocks, see what it was like, and didn't look that pretty. So we traveled northwest, heading towards Las Vegas, and we just noticed this cloud just to the right side of us, and it just got grayer and grayer, and it got quite windy, and of course, and it was basically what it was, the sandstorm or dirt storm, whatever you want to call it. But Karen freaked out. She says, "We gotta get off the highway. We gotta get off the highway." So anyway, we pulled over and we ended up in a motel in Kingman. And Kingman is a small town that's sort of a lot of people use as a jump-off point to visit the Grand Canyon, approach from the west side. It's actually a nice little town, and it's also still on old Route 66, where you can see it's quite hilly in the background. Well, keep on rolling, heading further towards Las Vegas and the Hoover Dam, and the lake behind actually is referred to as Lake Mead. And I see it's quite rugged. And that's pretty much the bottom end of the Grand Canyon. Now Lake Mead is actually Colorado River backed up behind the Hoover Dam. It's the nation's largest man-made reservoir. It covers about 225 square miles, and the lake is 110 miles long. It pretty much feeds water to Las Vegas. It's quite large. And this, my friends, is the end of the trip. So hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, so long.